What if three people lived in the same mind and each came from their own time? Syndrome of multiple temporal personality. Edinburgh beyond the window trembled under a fine drizzle. On the wet granite of the cobblestones, the glow of street lamps spread into copper halos. A tin-colored sky hung low, as if ready to press down onto the rooftops. Only one office in the neurosurgery ward was lit, the one where Ian MacDonald, hunched over, was dictating into a portable recorder. On the desk beside his laptop lay an old pocket watch with a worn case. The hands lagged exactly 3 minutes behind, unchanged for 12 years, ever since the day his sister died. He remembered how, in the operating room back then, they had counted down the last seconds before the procedure began, and the console light had blinked exactly 3 minutes before her scheduled entrance into the room. They didn't make it. Ian had never repaired the watch. "Patient Julian Carroll, 39 years old," he began evenly. "Atypical multidissociative disorder with synchronous activity of 3 independent neuropatterns." Beyond the glass partition, Julian lay under the soft glow of the ceiling lamp. Electrodes on his temples crackled faintly. His eyelids trembled like those of a man seeing several dreams at once. Ian's gaze shifted to a stack of folders, observation protocols, letters of funding rejection, and, on top, a fresh resolution from the ethics committee. They reminded him that any further experiments without proof of substantial scientific contribution would be suspended. Time, both clinically and literally, was running out. Julian's lips moved. First came a phrase in Old English, drawn out with rounded vowels. Then a sharp switch to French with an unfamiliar cadence, as if from a future century. Then to a language whose words sounded part Scandinavian, part Celtic, yet none could be identified. Ian noted automatically. Line C, third personality. Speech encoding, hybrid. Inserted toponym, New Alba. Olfactory association, scent of caraway bread. Visual marker, woven bracelet with copper clasp. On the EEG monitor, 3 clusters lit up, each with its own rhythm. The sounds of the room, the ticking of the watch in his pocket, the crackle of the electrodes, the muffled patter of rain against the windowsill, layered like 3 unsynchronized metronomes. Julian suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze met Ian. "Your equipment thinks I live in 3 centuries at once?" he said with a faint smile. "For now, I'm the only one who thinks that," Ian replied without looking away. "The equipment is cautious." "You're late by 3 days," Julian added more quietly. "Or 3 centuries." The recorder clicked, capturing the words. Ian didn't know this would be the first entry in a case that would change not only his profession, but the map of time itself. The morning began with the smell of fresh coffee and the steady hum of machines. Ian entered the room holding a tablet with questions for the new session. Julian sat by the window, lazily sketching the facade of the building across the street. "It's Friday today, isn't it?" he asked without looking up. "Thursday," Ian answered. "No, it's Friday. In 2 hours, the courtyard lamp will burn out. The wire will short after the rain." Ian glanced at the tablet and silently made a note. This time, he decided to verify it immediately. He took a photo of the lamp, then asked Nurse Claire to check it in the evening and take another shot. The independent witness was logged in the protocol. That evening, when he returned to the ward, the lamp was indeed dead. In the photos, it appeared as a clear before and after. In the first session, the 19th century personality surfaced. The voice was deliberate, rhythmic, like a chronicle. "This morning, there was a duel on Leith Street. A young lord fell to a bullet. Honor was restored." Ian sent an archive request. Later, the reply confirmed. The Scotsman, May 14, 1890, reported a duel with details matching exactly. The second session, future. The speech fast, almost clipped. EOS, Module D4, Regeneration System Failure, 4 days to critical phase, node code Alpha 12 Delta. Ian forwarded the note to a contact at the European Space Agency, adding the cipher. The reply was evasive but acknowledged technical issues. The third, line C. The voice softened, became rich in imagery. Here, the sky has a copper tint, and coins are held in the palm like seeds. See? The knot of 3 rivers. It binds cities the way your vessels bind the heart. Julian pulled a copper coin from under the pillow, etched with interlaced lines. The metal felt strangely warm, as if held in someone's hand all morning. Between sessions, he was simply Julian, a former history lecturer. "Students learn history from memes. Saves time," he remarked, idly spinning the coin. "And sources save meaning," Ian replied, flipping through notes. "Let's get back to facts." Julian smirked, but said nothing more. By evening, Ian was reviewing the records. Each personality was self-contained and precise in details impossible to conjure through imagination alone. He realized he was no longer merely collecting data. He was listening to them as 3 distinct lives, all inexplicably trusting him. The night in the lab was quieter than usual. Ian sat before the transparent screen, rotating a 3D model of Julian's brain. On the MEG layer, 3 zones of activity, each with its own rhythm. PET scans recorded metabolic differences. TMS clicked steadily, delivering pulses across a coordinate grid. He logged the protocol. Safety threshold 0.7 millitesla. Duration 300 milliseconds. Pause 2 seconds. Line A passed, stable response, speech center without drift. Line B, brief tachycardic response. Line C, unpredictable fluctuations, recommend only single pulses. Nearby lay the pocket watch, still 3 minutes slow. Before ending the session, Ian ran a brief synchronization test. He displayed all 3 patterns on the panel and introduced micro-phase shifts. On the 6th second, the past and future rhythms aligned, their graphs pulsing together. Line C tried to adjust, but collapsed into chaos by the 9th second. He logged, max 9-second stability, then reset. By noon, Professor Clark from London had joined. The screen split, data on the left, a shared document with Catherine Lefevre on the right. Title, Hypothesis of the Temporal Knot, Neural Synchronization of Displaced Chronostreams. Definition, the patient demonstrates stable coaxial coexistence of 3 chronologically independent patterns with local overlaps in parieto-temporal regions. In bold, any intervention alters the system's balance. "If the model's right," Clark said, "surgery is editing history." "I'm always editing," Ian replied, "just usually in one person's brain." After the session, he walked home. On Canongate, a new old shop sign in Gothic lettering marked a window display of fountain pens. He was sure it had been a cafe yesterday. On the next street, above a roof, shimmered the transparent dome of a Martian resort, its ad playing without sound. Further along the cobblestones lay a copper coin with an interwoven mark. He picked it up and recognized the knot of 3 rivers pattern, warm, as if fresh from a hand. Passers-by didn't pause, as though it was part of the usual landscape. Ian held his breath, then slipped the coin into the pocket with his watch. That evening he sat at the screen again. 3 lines, 3 beats. The past pulsed in copper gold, the future in cold blue, line C in shifting hues beyond analysis. 3 metronomes that can be pulled into time, he thought, and logged. Noted external artifacts, possible flow overlaps in urban environment, monitored dynamically. Outside, rain drummed against the windowsill, and the watch's ticking matched the rhythm of the TMS pulses. The morning began with a white envelope on the desk. No return address, only Dr. Ian MacDonald. The thick paper rasped like an archival form. He raised the letter opener, but recalled Julian's warning. Don't tear the envelope until it's time. He placed it in the drawer beside the pocket watch. In his inbox, a protocol from the ethics committee. Intervention permitted only with proven scientific or medical contribution within established safety thresholds with informed patient consent. Deadline, exactly 7 days from resolution. The stakes were clear. The future personality spoke in sharp, technical bursts. Orbital Station EOS, Module D4, regenerator failure. 27,000 people, 96 hours to cascading shutdown. Line C replied in imagery. When the main flow is torn, the city goes mute. 3 tongues of New Alba fall silent. Markets empty. Children forget the word river. The past pleaded. There was a duel. If you strike it out, the people and memory will vanish. Under Catherine's supervision, Ian conducted the first suppression test on one pattern via TMS. 90 seconds, minimal amplitude. Target, temporarily mute line B, future. On the 40th second, Julian faltered mid-sentence, fell silent, then asked, "Who is Lucy?" A cold shiver ran down Ian's spine. Lucy, Julian's niece, whom he mentioned in nearly every session. Her memory returned a minute later, but Ian understood. Each intervention could erase something living. When the 3 personalities returned, they clashed. "You must intervene," line B demanded. "I must not kill the living in the process," Ian answered. The past demanded correction of a parliamentary error. The future, immediate fix of EOS protocols. Line C, the preservation of the main flow at any cost. Their words overlapped into noise that made Julian groan and press his hands to his temples. That evening, alone, Ian took out the envelope, held it to the light, and sliced the edge. Onto the desk fell a thin watch spring, smooth, resilient, cold, and a page of formulas. Signature at the bottom, pattern synchronization. The schematic resembled phase alignment of 3 metronomes into a single beat. He closed his fist over the spring, feeling it warm in his palm. The solution was near, but the price too high to risk a mistake. Ian decided the conversations with Julian's 3 personalities should happen separately, without interruptions or overlapping voices. The room was lit only by a desk lamp. A wall clock ticked steadily, holding the space in focus. First came line A, the 19th century. The voice slow, deliberate, with Victorian formality. "I had a pupil, Mr. Hargraves, a modest boy from Edinburgh. His name should have remained in the parliamentary record as the man who proposed the bridge load law. 1890, 3rd reading. But in your line, that law vanished, and with it, Hargraves. Keep me, you keep him." Then line B, the future. Speech sped up, clipped, full of technical terms. EOS, Module D4, thermal regulator circuit. Config error, flow inversion in cycle 12. Fix, replace valve with bypass manually before the 83rd hour. You know Engineer Moreau, tell him, it will save the station. Lastly, line C. The voice softened, became poetic, words weaving familiar and strange sounds. New Alba wakes to the scent of caraway bread. In the harbor stand 3 ships, each under its own flag, yet trade flows in a common tongue. Markets exchange cloth, spices, stories. When the main flow is torn, flags burn, languages go deaf. Children no longer recognize each other by song. "You ask me to choose between people and songs," Ian said, leaning forward slightly. "Songs are people when their calendars are taken," line C answered without pause. Ian listened without interruption. In each voice he heard not just information, but the fear of loss. All offered a choice, but none knew the consequences. When Julian slept, Ian took the envelope from the drawer. The knife slid along the edge, and the same thin watch spring and page of formulas fell onto the desk. Signature, Pattern synchronization. He read until he understood. It was possible not to cut off lines, but to align their rhythms, like three unsynchronized metronomes brought into one beat. The risk was immense, but it might keep them all alive. He closed his fist on the spring, feeling the cold metal, a reminder that time could still be assembled, if he dared. The operating room had been prepped since dawn. The air carried the sterile tang of antiseptic. Ventilation hummed steadily. On the tables lay kits for deep brain stimulation. Ultra-thin electrodes, fiber optic sensors, a neurostimulator with phase modulator. The plan was risky. Not to remove two patterns, but to synchronize all three via targeted DBS with a phase modulator, creating microshifts until phases locked. Models showed that with correct tuning, the rhythms could enter a stable phase. Side effect, memory overload and possible loss of the operator's own memories in a back resonance event. Julian lay under anesthesia, face peaceful as in sleep. On the telemetry monitor, 3 connectivity graphs pulsed, each in the color of its line, gold, blue, and iridescent. "Begin stimulation," Ian said, delivering the first impulse. At first, the gold graph, past, wavered separately, but within seconds began to match the blue, future. Line C resisted. Iridescent nodes darted, forming chaotic bridges. Ian adjusted the phase shift by 0.4 milliseconds. On the connectivity screen, new arcs appeared. Regions that once avoided contact began forming crosslinks. The brain seemed to search for a common rhythm. "Are you sure about the phase?" the assistant asked quietly. "If not, we'll find out at the same time as the patient," Ian replied, eyes on the monitor. A sudden burst of static came through the headset, and a barely audible phrase, as if from inside his own memory. "Don't be late." An image of his sister flashed, and for a moment he forgot in which year she had died, or if she had at all. He realized this was back resonance, a brief cutout erasing a fragment of self. "Synchronization achieved," the assistant announced, as all 3 graphs began pulsing in unison. Ian stopped stimulation and straightened. His chest felt hollow, like after a long run. He checked telemetry, stable, but the exact digits of his sister's phone number were gone. Julian slept with a light smile, not one of the 3, but a new, single one. Ian looked at him and knew. The decision was made, and now they both lived in one shared line of time. The morning was clear and cool. Ian walked along Waverley Bridge, the familiar weight of the watch in his pocket. The hands now kept perfect time with the city bells, their rhythm matching his steps. At the intersection, a low hum joined his pace. A polished steam tram rolled slowly along the rails, gleaming brass rails, conductor in vintage uniform. On its roof, a miniature hologram displayed the next departure time, synced with the city app. Passengers in Victorian cloaks sat beside people in everyday jackets, and no one seemed surprised. On the next street, above the old theater's facade, spun a semi-transparent ad for a Martian resort. Behind it, a shop window of writing quills bore a sign in 3 languages: English, Norman, and Scandinavian. These were the toponyms of New Alba, now woven into the city's fabric as naturally as the stone of its streets. A vibration in his pocket. Ian answered. "Dr. MacDonald," a confident woman's voice. "This is Lucy. My teacher always said you saved us both. He was right." The line went dead, leaving him standing in the street with the crisp sense of a cycle completed. He stepped into a small cafe, ordered a black coffee, and set on the table a copper coin with the knot of 3 rivers. Beside it, the watch, its hands no longer slow by a single second. The barista, handing him change, smiled. "Your change, in copper or in time?" "If you can, synchronize it," Ian replied. He took a sip and looked out the window, where a tram passed, and above it, a hologram timetable shimmered. This was no overlay of worlds, but a new, whole city where every era had found its place.